When you wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., your first instinct is to resist it. You check the time, sigh in frustration, roll over, and try to force yourself back to sleep. You tell yourself, I need rest. I have things to do tomorrow. But what if this moment isn't about sleep? What if it's about something deeper? Most of us wake up at this hour and immediately go into reaction mode. We react with frustration, confusion, even fear. We start thinking, why is this happening? What's wrong with me? And without realizing it, we allow that reaction to dictate the rest of our experience. But what if instead of reacting, we chose to respond? See, the difference between reacting and responding is intention. A reaction is automatic. It's driven by impulse, by habit, by emotion. But a response requires awareness. It requires you to pause, to assess, to make a choice. And that choice changes everything. Because when you wake up at this hour, you have a decision to make. You can fight it, resist it, try to distract yourself, or you can lean in. You can ask yourself, why am I awake? What is this moment trying to teach me? What is God trying to say? And if you start asking those questions, you'll notice something shifts. Instead of feeling frustrated, you start feeling curious. Instead of seeing this moment as an inconvenience, you start seeing it as an invitation. Instead of filling it with mindless distractions, you start filling it with purpose. Because let's be real, when we don't recognize the meaning of something, we waste it. When we don't see the value in a moment, we fill it with things that don't matter. That's why, for so many of us, the first thing we do when we wake up at this hour is reach for our phone. We scroll, we check messages, we watch videos. Not because those things will help us, but because they're easier than sitting in the silence. But what if, instead of reaching for your phone, you reached for God? What if, instead of trying to numb your mind, you opened your heart? What if, instead of asking, how do I go back to sleep, you asked, what am I being called to wake up to? Because I need you to hear this. You are not awake by accident. This is not random. This is not just a sleep issue. This is spiritual. And what you do in this moment matters. Because how you handle the silence of the early morning determines how you handle the noise of the day. If you wake up in reaction, you'll live in reaction. But if you wake up with intention, you'll move through your day with clarity, with focus, with power. So here's the shift I want you to make. Instead of waking up frustrated, lean in. Instead of seeing this moment as a problem, see it as preparation. Instead of using it to overthink, use it to listen. Maybe you've been asking God for answers, and this is his way of giving them to you. Maybe you've been waiting for clarity, and he's been waiting for you to be still long enough to receive it. Maybe the reason he keeps waking you up is because this is the only time you'll actually hear him. So the next time you find yourself awake at 3 a.m., don't fight it. Don't fill it with distractions. Take a deep breath, be still, and ask, what am I being called to pay attention to? Because the moment you stop resisting and start listening is the moment everything begins to change. When you wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., there is a choice you have to make. You can let the moment be filled with fear, with worry, with thoughts that pull you deeper into anxiety, or you can shift the atmosphere. You can wrestle with negativity, or you can replace it with purpose. Because here's what we have to understand. Negative thoughts do not leave on their own. You can't just hope they disappear. You can't just wait them out. If you don't take control of the moment will take control of you. And too many of us allow our minds to be a battleground where negativity wins simply because we never fight back. But here's the truth. You don't overcome negative feelings by ignoring them. You don't defeat fear by pretending it's not there. You don't conquer anxiety by suppressing it. You have to replace it with something stronger. And that's where intentionality comes in. Because if you don't choose what to do with that moment, negativity will choose for you. Think about it. When you wake up at this hour, the thoughts that come aren't random. They feel targeted. They feel personal. They sound like, what if things don't work out? What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? And if you just let those thoughts run, they will dictate how you feel, how you move, and ultimately how you live. But what if you didn't just let those thoughts take over? What if you made the decision to take that moment back? Because the truth is, when God wakes you up at this hour, he's not trying to overwhelm you. He's trying to prepare you. And part of that preparation means learning how to shift the atmosphere of your mind. So the next time you wake up feeling anxious, don't just sit in that feeling, replace it. If fear is speaking, speak louder. If doubt is creeping in, answer it with truth. If your mind is trying to pull you into darkness, turn on the light. And here's how you do that. Instead of reaching for your phone, reach for your journal. Instead of scrolling through negativity, start writing down what you're grateful for. Instead of letting your mind wander into worry, start praying. Instead of allowing fear to fill the silence, start declaring what you know to be true. Because what you fill the moment with is what will shape your day. If you fill it with anxiety, you'll carry that anxiety with you. But if you fill it with purpose, with peace, with truth, then that's what will guide you. Some of you have been letting your emotions control you instead of realizing that you have the authority to shift them. Some of you have been waiting for peace to just show up when peace is something you have to step into. Some of you have been hoping that the negative thoughts will just stop, when really they stop when you decide to replace them. So the next time you wake up in the early hours of the morning, don't just sit in whatever emotions come. Take control of the moment. Choose what you will focus on. Choose what you will believe. Choose what you will speak over your life. Because this isn't just about one night. This is about how you live. And when you learn to take control of your mind at 3 a.m., you'll know how to take control of it at 3 p.m. When you learn to overcome fear in the silence, you'll know how to overcome it in the noise. When you learn to win the battle at night, you'll know how to walk in victory during the day. So the next time you wake up, don't waste the moment. Don't surrender to fear. Don't let negativity dictate what happens next. Shift the atmosphere, because the moment you do, everything begins to change. There's something about those early hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. It's too early to start the day, but too late to call it midnight. And yet, somehow, that's when you find yourself awake again. You check the time, sigh in frustration, roll over, and try to force yourself back to sleep. But what if I told you this moment isn't random? What if I told you this is a divine appointment? Because here's what I know. God does not waste time. If he's waking you up, he's waking you up for a reason. Think about it. During the day, we move fast. There's so much noise. Emails, deadlines, social media, responsibilities. We're so consumed by the demands of life that we barely have time to stop, breathe, and listen. But in those quiet hours of the night, when everything else is still, that's when you wake up, and that's when God speaks. This is the moment when heaven is pressing into your spirit, when the distractions of the world are stripped away, and all that's left is you, raw, unfiltered, present. But the problem is, most of us don't recognize it. We wake up And instead of leaning in, we resist it. We think it's insomnia, bad sleep patterns, maybe too much caffeine before bed. But what if we've been missing the point? When God wakes you up at that hour, he's trying to get your attention. Not to overwhelm you, not to frustrate you, but to speak to you. He's calling you into a moment where your heart is most open, where your mind is unguarded, where your soul is ready to receive. But we have a choice. Either we fight it or we embrace it. Some of us wake up in the middle of the night and immediately feel heavy. The weight of our thoughts, the stress of our problems, the regrets of yesterday, the worries of tomorrow. It all comes flooding in. And instead of seeing this moment as an invitation, we see it as an attack. We wrestle with the thoughts, try to distract ourselves, or just lay there hoping sleep will take us back. But what if, instead of fighting it, we leaned into it? What if we recognize that this isn't just a restless night? It's a divine encounter. I'll tell you why this is important. Because the voice of God isn't loud. It's not forceful. It's not competing for your attention like everything else in your life. His voice is still, it's gentle, it's a whisper. And sometimes the only way we can hear it is when everything else is quiet. Some of the greatest revelations don't come in the busyness of the day. They come in the stillness of the night. Some of the most powerful prayers aren't prayed in church. They're prayed when no one else is awake. When you're sitting in the dark, wrestling with your thoughts, and suddenly you feel God nudging you. Talk to me. Some of you have been praying for direction, for clarity, for breakthrough, and God has been trying to answer you, but not in the way you expect it. He's been waking you up, creating space, making room, but you've been too busy trying to go back to sleep that you haven't realized this is the moment you've been asking for. What if I told you that the answer you're looking for isn't coming in the middle of the afternoon? What if it's waiting for you in the silence before dawn? See, we keep asking God to speak, but when he calls us at 3 a.m., we ignore him. We keep asking for wisdom, but when he wakes us up, we turn over and check the time instead of checking in with him. We keep asking for breakthrough, but when the opportunity comes to sit with him in the stillness, we resist it. I wonder how many times God has woken us up, ready to pour into us, and we missed it because we didn't see it for what it was. Tonight, when you wake up again, because you will, what will you do? Will you go back to sleep or will you pause and listen? Will you resist or will you embrace the moment? Because maybe, just maybe, God isn't trying to disturb your sleep. Maybe he's trying to wake up something inside of you. You ever notice that when you wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., your mind doesn't always wake up in peace. It doesn't greet you with joy or excitement. No, most of the time it meets you with worry, with fear, with thoughts that feel heavier in the dark than they do in the daylight. It's strange, isn't it? The very moment when everything around you is still, your mind is the loudest. The moment when your body is at rest, your thoughts start racing, and suddenly you're replaying conversations from the past, overthinking situations that haven't even happened yet, battling feelings you thought you had already overcome. This is not a coincidence. See, there is something about those early hours that makes your mind more vulnerable, because during the day you have things to distract you. Work, family, tasks, social media. But at night, when all of that is stripped away, you are left alone with your thoughts. And that's when the battle begins. It's in this window between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. that fear tries to whisper, that doubt tries to creep in, that insecurities try to take root. And for so many of us, this is where we lose. Not because we're weak, not because we don't have faith, but because we don't recognize what's happening. But what if I told you, This battle wasn't designed to break you. What if I told you it was an opportunity to strengthen you? Because here's what we have to understand. When the enemy attacks, he doesn't attack what's weak. He attacks what's valuable. If he's coming for your mind, it's because your mind holds power. If he's trying to fill you with fear, it's because he's afraid of what you'll do when you wake up with courage. If he's trying to steal your peace, it's because he knows how dangerous you are when you walk in it. So instead of seeing these moments as a torment, what if you saw them as training? Instead of seeing them as something to escape, what if you saw them as something to confront? Because here's the truth. The battle of the mind doesn't happen when the sun is out, when people are watching, when you're in full control. It happens when no one is around, when it's just you, God, and the thoughts you can't run from. And that's why this moment matters. Because what you do between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. isn't just about those hours, it sets the tone for your entire day. If you wake up and surrender to fear, that fear follows you into the morning. If you let doubt take root in the dark, it stays with you in the light. If you allow anxiety to consume you, it shapes your decisions, your interactions, your actions. But if you fight back, if you take control of the moment, you shift everything. The enemy wants you to think that when you wake up feeling anxious, it's proof that you're weak. But I want to challenge that. What if waking up in the battle is proof that you're called? What if it's not about what's wrong with you, but about what's right with you? Because the truth is, some of the greatest people in Scripture had their most defining moments in the middle of the night. Some of the biggest battles were fought in the quiet hours when no one was watching. And if you're waking up at this hour, it's not random. It's a sign that something is stirring. So here's the shift I want you to make. The next time you wake up feeling overwhelmed, instead of reacting with fear, respond with intention. Instead of letting your mind wander into negativity, bring it back to truth. Instead of letting anxiety have the first word, let God have it. Because you have a choice. You can let these thoughts control you, or you can take control of them. You can let fear speak, or you can speak back. You can either surrender to the battle, or you can start winning it. So tonight, when you wake up and the thoughts come rushing in, ask yourself, is this a moment to fear, or is this a moment to fight? Because I promise you, victory doesn't start when the sun rises. It starts in the silence before dawn.